She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Don't you just love that sound? Welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and these are our Night Terrors. The Night Terrors are our shorter format shows, and that's what we got on deck for you tonight. Hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for spending the remainder of your weekend here with me. I know it's late for some of you, but I always love that I turn on the lights and you guys are here. So quick announcement coming up. This is something I just decided on just a few hours ago, and I've just been trying to keep up with everything for a long time now, and it just feels like I'm in catch my tail mode. When you're doing 5 live shows and a podcast every week and trying to keep everything organized and scheduled and be creative and to find new material and to find people to talk to about the stuff, scheduling, and then there's just life. Being a dad, being having a family, and it's just so much going on. I haven't felt 100% anyway for a bit here, and I just decided, I gotta take some time. I've got to take some time. So what I've decided is that following tonight's show, then I'm going to take a week off. I got to take a week away, step back, and just start to create some processes, create some flows and some workflows that are going to help me to keep this under control and to keep bringing you guys the best shows, because I'll tell you what it feels like. And I love that you guys love the shows. I really do. It means the world to me, but it feels like I'm dragging a show out for you rather than I'm bringing something that I'm just energetic and excited to bring to you. And I don't want that to be the precedent that we set here on the show. We've been, extraordinarily innovative and unique in what we do for 5 years, and it keeps evolving and changing. And I think that that's necessary. We can't keep doing the same shows over and over and expect the same excitement level from all of you guys, nor from us here doing it. So I keep wanting to innovate and keep developing, keep throwing, new things out into the mix. And I can't do all of that and continue the momentum of what already is going without taking a step back. So that's what the determination was. I hope that makes sense to you guys, because honestly, doing the shows has always been the highlights of my week. I mean, it really is. It's something I adore doing. I love doing it. I love getting onto the microphone and talking to you guys. And I love that you guys show up to hear it. But it just feels like I need to I need to bring more to the show rather than just keeping up. And I thought I was doing that when I just went from doing 7 live shows a week and 3 podcasts down to 5 live shows a week and 1 podcast with a bonus every once in a while. But it's just so much more. But thank you. Good. Take the time you need. We'll be here waiting. Thank you, Viva. I appreciate that. Android Purity. Definitely take some time to reset. It's resetting, and it's also just re-aiming everything. I just feel like everything's scattered right now, and I'm just beside myself. No problem, Portal. Everyone needs a break. Thank you, Aussie. I appreciate that, guys. I hope that makes sense to you guys, because it's always Cryptid Corner's my favorite, Aiden. Good deal. It's hard for me to step away from this because this is my baby, and I feel like I got to be here every day because this is something I've nursed to life over years. And with some amazing people like yourselves out there. I keep wanting to bring you the best I can, and I don't think I'm doing that right now. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to come back. We're going to go after tonight's show. This whole next week will be no shows. And then Don and I will return on Wednesday, the 28th, as it stands right now. And we'll start back up again. And hopefully you'll feel the difference. You'll see the difference. And hopefully the shows will have a new vigor in them. Because just putting on a show isn't good enough. This has to be entertaining. Otherwise, you guys aren't going to continue to show up. It's just, oh, yeah, they're on again. Okay, well, I saw that, and I can check it out later. But instead, I'm going to go blah, blah, blah. So I want to be your first choice if I can be, and I can't do that if I'm just throwing together shows on the fly. So that's what we're going to do. Aussie Tiger, taking a break. We'll save your voice. My voice always sounds like it's been run through a food processor. I don't know. This is how I sound. But anyway, hopefully then I can also just get my health and, rest myself into better health and stuff too. Because whatever's going on, man, I've been dragging it around for over a week and I'm tired. I'm just tired. So anyway, let's get to it. Tonight is the Cryptid Corners, as was properly identified by Aiden before. And we've got some cool stuff. And part of it I want to revisit from last night because I realized I was talking about Liminal Earth. And then when I got done with that segment, I started up another piece. And then I realized I'd never actually shown you guys on screen what Liminal Earth looks like. So we're going to look at that because there's cryptid reports on there. We're going to look at some of those. So we'll look at it together in just a moment here. But we're going to start there. Other than that, the phone lines will be open. So if you want to call in and be a part of the discussion, you can be. 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. Those are the numbers to call if you want to be on the show with me. Otherwise, I don't know how else to make it happen. So the phones are available if you want to call in and be on it. There they are. And I guess that's everything on the front end. So I hope you all are ready because it's time for bed. Alrighty, folks, that means we are officially underway here now. And let's get started with some of this goodness. We also I did find, it's not really a trail cam picture, but I found something today that's going to be in the place of a trail cam picture. And it's really bizarre. So we'll go over that on Trail Cam Terrors because it's kind of like a trail cam photo, but it's actually around somebody's house on their camera system. But whatever it is, looks kind of creepy, but you guys will have to be the judge. Anyway, what the hell was I going to say? I forgot whatever was in my head next. It's gone. So let's go to the Liminal Earth. Let me see, where the hell is that? No, that's not it. That's not it. There it is. Okay. Now, this is the site that I was talking about yesterday, folks. And this is Liminal Earth. Liminal.earth or liminal.earth. liminal.earth. So this is the repository. And if you're familiar with the BFRO, this is a very similar kind of format where different places are highlighted, these events that were recorded. And this is a global map, of course. And you can see that it's not really robust yet, but there's some really good densities in the U.S. at least, and in a lot of Europe over here. So with some even in South Africa and South America. And so let's look through some of these. Let's see what we can find. Now with this, you also have to push in the control button on your keyboard and then use the scroll wheel and see what you find here. Now there is a key down here. I want to show you this. This is the key. It's in the map legend, and it tells you what these icons represent. So the red skull and bones, dark forces, lanyard zombies, drones, corporate death zones, cupcake shops, I don't know what cupcake shops are, but maybe they're horrible too. I don't know. Time distortions is next with the clock on the little banner. Time travelers, time hunters, deja vu, losing time, etc. Mythologies is this one. Looks like a deer on it or something. But it's pre-shamanic deer cults, radical Gnostic, animism, etc. The next is cryptids, Bigfoot, lycanthrope, trolls, ogres, etc. Thin places, ley lines, magic fountains, plant sigils, portals, etc. And straight up ghosts is the next one, which I think everybody understands. High weirdness is Fortean phenomena, floating Toblerone, things that just don't make sense, classical UFO, strange animals bearing gifts, unusual encounters, fecal divination. Good God, what the hell is fecal divination? I don't even know that that's a thing. Next one is visions, dreams. What the hell is fecal divination? I don't know. And then there's randonauts. Find something found with Randonautica. So let's look at some of these just out of curiosity. Just kind of looking in my neck of the woods here. Whoops, forgot to scroll. Forgot the control. Where's my map lines? What the hell's going on? Quit doing that. Whoa. Okay. Okay. So I'm looking for anything near me. What the hell's this? Okay, so Strange Flyers is kind of close. That's down here. And this is one that I was kind of flagging last night. What I thought I was showing you on the screen. But anyway, let's see what we got here. Oh, quit scrolling the whole page. Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, let's look at it and see what it says. Good Lord, look at that font. Oof. I wonder if we can blow this up a little bit here. Oh, no. All right. I guess it's all right here in the font, so let me blow this up. It's a learning curve, to be sure, but let's take a look at this and see what we find. My friend Donnie and I lived in 2 separate single-wide trailers available for employee housing. Both were heated by an outdoor boiler that we needed to stock with wood a few times a day, and we were the only ones living on the campground since it was winter and the off-season. We went out to stock the boiler, and it started snowing, these insane huge snowflakes out of nowhere. Beautiful. We sat and watched the snow just amazed, and after we had put a grip of logs in the boiler, we heard this sound fly over us, close enough that you could feel the vibrations of the air with it. It sounded like something that flapped its wings at the speed of a hummingbird, but it was much, much larger. Much larger. For something to flap its wings that fast and be the size of it that it was, we couldn't fathom what we felt and heard pass over our heads. At close range, twice, middle of the winter, mind you, in a snowstorm. If birds were out, why would they be in the middle of the night in the winter? We couldn't think of a single species that flapped its wings like that would be that large. We could feel the vibration of the wings against the air. Unexplainable. Well, we just sat in dead silence. Crackling of the fire is all we heard, and nearly an Oz effect. Sitting in silence for what seemed like forever, just staring unquestioningly into each other's eyes. A definite what the hell was that moment. We talked about it for a long time, but never saw anything, just experienced the sound and feel. And that was by Kristen. Huh. Yeah, that's terrifying. I don't know what that could be. Could it just be some kind of anomaly from the storm? Maybe. But that's weird. Let's go in here again and see what we can find. Excuse me. I did want to go over here on the Olympic Peninsula because I saw a couple of the Bigfoot reports over here. So let's see. Well, at least cryptid reports, but let's see what they say. This one's by Port Angeles. I don't know when the dates of these are. That's the tough part. It says it's really not giving us a date range that I see as I'm looking at this. But anyway, it says, I was hiking with my family and myself, my 2 older brothers, my father, my uncle, and 2 cousins. As a child, we were camped for the night at PJ Lake, and later that evening, after most of us had gone to bed, my dad and uncle were sitting up. And suddenly there was a terrible noise from the woods that sounded like someone screaming, but it wasn't a mountain lion or an elk. As my dad and uncle were both very familiar with the woods in these parts and knew the various sounds of the animals in the area, they were also honestly and truly scared. And it's one of the only times I've ever seen them that way before or since. These big angry howls were accompanied by actual stones being thrown near the perimeter of the camp, basically just out of the firelight. We hadn't seen any signs of anyone camping nearby us, and for all we knew, we were alone in the woods that night except for the local wildlife. Well, we got no sleep that night, and we left early in the morning, and in the years since the incident, I've heard similar noises, and I heard that night, and what has been described identically by all who were there, primarily on nature documentaries about primates and the great apes. Wow. Yeah, those sounds are pretty unmistakable by the sounds of it. I've not heard them in real life, but I have heard the intensity is the thing. It's so loud, like it's carried by a mechanism not unlike our own, but just much, much bigger. People talk about the intensity of their howls, and there's people losing consciousness just being exposed to that. So that's pretty intense. All right, that was the first one. That was RJ Lake. I wish it wouldn't reset every time. I wish it wouldn't do that. But anyway, maybe I'm doing it wrong. But it's my first time playing with it. It's really neat, though. I really do like this site. And I think that having this form of database, this with so many phenomena, detailed on it, is really, really incredible. Here's the second one. Sam's River. Okay, so I'm not clicking anything, but it does it by itself. Okay. Here we go. I gotta wet my whistle. It's difficult to say really what happened at Sam's River. Firstly, Sam's River Trail's existence is a debated subject. We found it in an old guidebook on the beach cabin we stayed at. Washington Trails Association claims it doesn't exist, and other places call it Queets River Trail. Physically, it may still be down a gravel road off Queets River Road. The beginning of the trail was abandoned cabin with nothing but a brief sign warning about bears. There was no one else there, and nor did it seem that there had been for quite some time. Near the beginning of the trail, we came across a tree snapped in half with massive claw marks, going up to the snapped point. Shortly after that, the trail divided, half going off to the edge into the river, and at this point, we began to hear a distant scream like howls. We kept going a couple of miles in the trail followed a small stream into what I can only describe as a swampy meadow. Vine maples and saplings filled with Swanson's thrushes and robins presided over a lush field of green grass, all inundated with water. At the edge of the meadow, the trail transformed into a stream and then disappeared entirely. The guidebook said the trail was a loop, so we, my family and I, fanned out to find the trail. We found a trail and then another one, and the meadow was webbed with many narrow trails, all leading in different directions. Eventually, we picked one and just walked on it. A few miles more, and we had reached the supposed length of the loop trail. And we had not made a loop and we were far from our starting destination. The howls were getting closer to us, or we were getting closer to them. So we decided to turn around and go back, and we returned to the car without incident. Attached image is of a knocked over trees. Trees that size usually bring up the root ball when they fall. Oh. But does that look scorched? Could that be lightning? Could that just be a lightning blast that kind of scorched it and blew it up? Because I've seen videos of lightning hitting trees, and it kind of does this. It kind of just fragments the remaining trunk And so I don't know, but yeah, that is unusual. It's certainly not common, whatever it is, but there's that one. I don't know what you think, but this is all in the Olympic Peninsula area. And of course, anybody familiar with the Sasquatch and the pursuit of the Sasquatch, you know that the Olympic Peninsula is like one of the places that people continually go to try to find more information. All right, so let me look here. Whoa, don't do that. I don't like that it does that. Maybe because I'm not scrolling. Okay, all right. I guess if I hit control, it locks the rest of the page. Okay, here's one. Let's see, this is Paliup, south of Paliup. Okay, I'm not really familiar with Washington that much, so I don't really know what I'm doing here. We can go here, I guess, see what this one is. Because we're in the cryptid corners. All right, let's see what this one comes. The Old Man of the Crater. That sounds like an old Squatch, doesn't it? The Old Man of the Crater. Unbeknownst to most, Seattle's bucolic Ingram High School, home of the Fightin' Rams, is named after the figure from Seattle's history, with a mysterious connection to local high weirdness. Major Edwin Sturgis, E.S. Ingram, pictured, was the first superintendent of the Seattle Public Schools, a mountaineer, founder of the local Alpine Club, and well-regarded Seattle socialite, as well as a huge fan of our beloved local volcano Tahoma, a.k.a. Mount Rainier. Not only did the accompanying naturalist John Muir to the summit of the mega volcano, but he also used his local influence and scientific creds to help push for making it a national park. However, it's what happened during his expedition to the summit in 1895 that interests us. The Tahoma has long been associated with spooky goings-on. In 1947, aviator Kevin Arnold witnessed a group of mysterious objects flying near the summit. The case became one of the first sensational UFO stories. In 1994, a local teenager had a terrifying account with a creature now known locally as Bat Squatch. Bat Squatch, oh no. The mountain is so sacred to local indigenous nations that early white settlers had difficulty finding native guides who would take them to the top. Okay, here we go. Ingram's account, however, may take the proverbial cake for the weirdest tale from Tahoma's slopes. In his account, which he published in the Pacific Forest Reserve and Mount Rainier, begins with the observation of some mysterious scratches on the walls of a stream cave. Of a stream cave? Okay. While my companion and I were exploring the stream caves at the time of my second visit to the crater at Mount Rainier, I noticed peculiar marks and scratchings on the floor of the cave. In some places, the ground appeared as though it had been the scene of a conflict between some maddened beasts. So extensive was the disturbance. In other places, they were depressions that might have been made by some flat-footed animal pawing at the earth. He also reported a strange glow in the cave, coupled with a peculiar sensation of the body, such as the pole of an electrical machine slightly charged. Deciding to revisit the cave on his own that night, he crept from his tent and began descending into the depths below. Hearing a noise above and wondering if perhaps his travel companions had the same idea he did, he stepped into a wall in the recess. What happened next astounded him. And what follows is an unedited excerpt from the Pacific Forest Reserve and Mount Rainier. I had not long to wait, for almost immediately there came, now rolling, now making an attempt to crawl, a figure of strange and grotesque appearance. Down the passage, it stopped within a few feet of me, writhing and floundering very much like a drowning man would do, and then drawn up from the water, he was about to sink for the last time. Its shape was nearer that of a human being than any other animal. The crown of his head was pointed, with bristled hair pointing in every direction. The eyeballs were pointed too, and while they appeared dull and visionless at times, there was an occasional flash of light from the points, which increased in frequency and brilliancy as its owner began to revive. The nails of its fingers and toes were long and pointed and resembled polished steel more than hardened cuticle. I discovered that the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet were hard and calloused. In fact, the whole body, while human in shape, except the pointedness of the parts I had mentioned, seemed very different in character from that of a human species. There was nothing about the mysterious being, however, that would make it possible that its ancestry of long ages ago might have been human beings like ourselves. Yet by living in different surroundings and under entirely different conditions, many of its characteristics had changed. By degrees, this strange being began to revive. Gradually, an electric glow covered the entire body, with light centers in the ends of those pointed nails, the eyes and the top of the head, and it seemed to accomplish its revivification by rubbing its hands vigorously together. As soon as it was able to stand, it began to rub its feet rapidly upon the floor of the cave. This increased the glow of its body and caused the light centers to shine with increased brilliancy. It seemed to receive some vital fluid from the earth that at once gave it new vigor to its whole system. Involuntarily, I imitated its actions and immediately found myself undergoing a very peculiar sensation. I seemed to be glowing in accord with the strange being, who then for the first time noticed my presence. He at once redoubted his former movements, and he would rub his hands vigorously together and then quickly extend the points of his fingers in my direction, when sparks of light would dart therefrom. Having become deeply interested in the strange exhibition, I went through the same maneuver with a similar result, although apparently in a much lesser degree. The effect was magical. I was becoming en rapport with the old man of the crater. I could see a brilliant point of light gradually forming in the crown of his head, feeling my own hair beginning to rise. I removed my knit cap and felt my hair bristling upward to an uncommon point. The light from his crown seemed to form an arch above and between us, and we were in communication. There in that icy passage connecting the unknown interior of this earth with the exterior, by means of a new medium, or rather an old medium, newly applied, two intelligent beings of different races were enabled to communicate, imperfectly at first, of course, with each other. For an hour I received impressions from the old man and the creator, and it is a strange story I get from him. While the time was comparatively short, yet what he told me, not by voice or look, but by subtle agency, not known or understood by me, would fill a volume of many pages. Finally expressing doubt at what he communicated, he commanded me to follow him, and I had anticipated such a demand and was ready to resist it. So when he turned to descend to the hot interior of the earth, as I verily believe by a superhuman effort, I broke the spell and hastened upward and back to my sleeping companions. This is no myth. The old man told me of his abode in the interior of another race to which he belonged, and the traditions of that race, of convulsions and changes on the earth, long, long ago, of the gradual contraction of a belt of matter around the earth, until it touched the surface, hemming in many of the inhabitants and drowning the remainder. And of the survival of a single pair, all was shut out and the atmosphere became changed. Gradually, this remaining pair was enabled to conform to the new order of things and became the parents of a race for want of a better name, I will call Subranians. This old man in the crater had wandered far away from the abode of his race in his desire to explore, far away from the home we had met, each out of his usual sphere. It's very strange, yeah. This is one of those cases where more questions than answers is certainly the only possible solution, although in this case remains relatively unknown, possibly because Ingram is so well regarded. A few have theorized that the old man was perhaps a Sasquatch, and others conjecture that it may have been a metaphor for the initiate rite of Freemasonry, or as Ingram was a member of that organization. Some think maybe he was high on fumes, but that doesn't seem a plausible explanation to us. What did the old man communicate to our erstwhile explorer in that liminal space between worlds? Why didn't Ingram compose that volume of many pages with the information delivered from the creature? Subterranean civilizations, a la Bulwer and Lytton's Rill were, oh God. Anyway, that's a long one. That's a really long one. And I don't really understand what I'm reading here because it's very odd. And is it possible? Sure, I guess, because it's an energetic kind of communication, but it's still very foreign to me, and it's hard to conceptualize this as I'm reading it. But this is the kind of material that you find on this site, and I think it's really exciting and cool because before this, I'd never heard of this. And I do have a desire to look into it more so that I do understand it better, but it's a hell of a tale. Having a moment of connection. Now, we hear about mind speak from people that are researching Sasquatch. They talk about mind speak. Well, maybe this is the kind of mind speak. This is just a different way of explaining what that is. Maybe that mind speak comes with a real weird sensation and feeling like that, and this guy just was much more poetic in his explanations. Who knows? But very cool all the same. I don't know. I'd never heard of it, like I said, but it's definitely worth looking into a lot more. But as you can see from the site, I think this will be great as this fills in more and more and more, because with all these phenomena represented, it may help to coordinate a lot of the wonders that we all have. Like, why there? Why in that spot? Maybe as these are recorded, as more people come in to fill in the blanks, we'll have a better understanding of the energetic makeup of our world and its relationship to the paranormal. So I think this is really cool, but you be the judge. Ultimately, end of the day, you got to be the judge. I think it's exciting stuff, though, because, and I love the BFRO. That's a great site for showcasing Bigfoot sightings and Bigfoot encounters. I think that, those repositories are invaluable. And I know I peruse them all the time. And I know many of you all out there as well do, because I know that Bigfoot's a huge topic. It's a huge topic for the whole Fortean and paranormal world. And honestly, I don't know that there's a more motivated fan group than the Bigfoot fan groups. And Dogman. I guess I should say Cryptid, but I think even much more than Dogman. The Bigfoot enthusiasts are everywhere. And they're really out there. They're really passionate about it, and they're really finding all the information they can. And it's really exciting, because with that many people out there looking, with that many people out there putting their blood, sweat, and tears into the search, I think that's how the big discoveries are going to happen. It's going to happen by some guy that might be in your neighborhood, just goes out on weekends squatching. He might find the next big piece of evidence. You never know. But I don't think it's probably going to be from organized science. I just don't think they have either the drive or the desire for whatever reasons. But there you have it. Let's see what I got. I got an article. I don't know if we have enough time though. I guess we have as much time as I decide to give it, really. This is an article I pulled up from Brent Swanser, and I thought it'd be kind of fitting to end with one of his articles, since this is the last live show for a while. It's a long article, and my voice is already choppy today. This is a hell of a long article. This will take every bit of the last bit of the show, but I think I'll read it because it's the last thing I'm going to read for a week. So until I get done and work on a podcast, but for this show. Okay. So this is an article from Brent Swanser, June 19th, 2018. Wartime encounters with menacing mystery monsters, published by mysteriousuniverse.org. Again, Brent Swanser's the real deal. He does a hell of a job. And if you want to follow him or his group on Facebook, check out Dark League Paranormal on Facebook. It's his group, and just a great guy. And you won't be disappointed because he posts all his latest articles up in that group. And you can see how busy that man is. All right, so this is Wartime Encounters with Menacing Mystery Monsters. And, of course, check out mysteriousuniverse.org. Thousands of articles there by many incredible authors, Brent Swanser included. But let's see what's going on here. Throughout history, the battlefields of our bloody wars have been saturated with all manner of tales of valor, bravery, cruelty, and tragedy. And these are part of the fabric of the war, an intrinsic property of it. And this tapestry of death infuses our history with its grim shadow. Often overshadowed by the atrocity of gloom and war, there are often other bizarre stories scattered about and buried within this history. And war seems to bring about its stories of strange entities, creatures, and mysteries as well, with some of these beings being just as sinister and scary as the enemy. Here are some of the more frightening and violent encounters with cryptids and mysterious entities during wartime. A particularly strange and rather violent early account comes from the Crimean War, which lasted from 1854 to 1856, and saw an alliance of forces from the Ottoman Empire, France, Britain, Sardinia, battling the Russian Empire for religious control of the Holy Land in the Middle East. Amid all the fierce fighting and death lies buried a very bizarre report of some sort of flying monster that defies every classification. During a lull in fighting, following a fierce 6-day battle, a band of Russian soldiers reportedly headed out over the nighttime battlefield in order to push past the corpses and buzzing flies to launch a surprise attack on the enemy, with whom they had arranged a tense 24-hour truce. It was an underhanded tactic, to say the least, but they wouldn't get very far in their insidious plan. Insidious, rather. As they crept closer to the enemy camp, the men suddenly realized that in the air above them there soared an enormous flying crow-like entity with the wings of a bat that was described as not having any discernible head. This thing seemed to be circling ominously above them, but the frightened men nevertheless warily continued their mission. However, for some reason they had become disoriented and were actually headed back towards their camp, where they were mistaken for the enemy and gunned down by friendly fire, with only one of them living to tell the tale of what they had seen out there in the dark. In later years, the account has evolved and changed depending on the retelling, and some reports claiming that the band of ambushers were not Russian at all, but rather Turkish troops, that they had rushed from the darkness screaming and pursued by a horde of bizarre screeching bat-like creatures. One interesting theory as to what was seen that night is that this was an early instance of the Mothman sighting, and that it was a harbinger of doom during this time of intense bloodshed. Whatever happened out there on that battlefield, it remains an intriguing mystery, along with all the tales of the battle. Moving on to later years, we come to World War I, which produced a few compelling accounts of mysterious monsters. A very strange and very dramatic, almost cinematic sighting happened during the fighting on the seas of the World War I and occurred on July 30th, 1915, when a German U-boat, U-28, was patrolling somewhere in the North Atlantic and locked onto a British steamer called Iberian. The steamer was relentlessly chased down and destroyed with torpedoes and shells, and it began to sink, the German sub circling it like a predator stalking its wounded prey. And as they watched, the bow of the vessel tipped up, and the once mighty British ship began to descend into the depths. As it did, there was reportedly a huge underwater explosion aboard the doomed vessel, speculated to have been perhaps a damaged boiler. The massive detonation set off a shower of foamy water and debris into the air, as well as something altogether bizarre beyond reason. According to the U-28's captain, Friar George G. von Forstner, he and several other crew members, an anomalous creature, the likes of which they had never seen, was also ejected out of the water with pieces of ship and the spray of the water, which was described as being somewhat similar to a crocodile in general body shape, with a long tapered head and measured a whopping 65 feet or 20 meters in length. The creature apparently came back down to the water, but was still alive, although obviously grievously wounded, purportedly thrashing about in the water and biting at wreckage for a time before sinking out of sight. In total, the creature was allegedly witnessed for about 15 seconds from a distance of around 500 to 300 feet in bright and clear daytime conditions. And there's kind of a dramatization of it. Wow. Good Lord. That's like that thing from Jurassic Park, the newest one. That eats the big sharks and stuff, yeah. Interestingly, Forstner would write of the bizarre encounter with both his log and in an official report on the matter. There has been speculation that it might have been a total fabrication, but this seems odd for a respected submarine captain to write such a fantastical delusion in a log right alongside serious war matters, as well as in a report to his superiors. It also could have been a misidentification, but of what? Cryptozoologists have pointed out to the fact that the creature described sounds very much like an enormous prehistoric marine reptile called a mosasaur, and it will probably remain a mystery as all of the witnesses are dead and the only records we have are the logbook and official report. However, it was the U-28 sighting. Whatever it was, the U-28 sighting is often considered to be one of the most reliable historical cryptozoological accounts out there. Another very similar, even scarier encounter happened in years later, near the end of World War I. Again, the North Atlantic, in April 30th, 1918, the British vessel, the Coreopsis, was operating off the coast of Ireland when they came across a German U-boat, UB-85, floundering in the water, which was approached without a fight. The frightened German crew seemed harried and surrendered without a single bit of resistance, seemingly happy to have been found and eager to get off their ship. The captain of UB-85, Gunter Kreck, would, under interrogation, tell a rather frightening and unbelievable account. He explained that the previous night the submarine had surfaced in order to charge its batteries. It had been a calm and quiet night, but this would all change when a gigantic impact was reported as rocking the vessel from below. As the shaken crew gathered to peer into the dark waters, a strange beast then supposedly surfaced right next to the submarine, described as having a bony head and large teeth set within a comparatively small head. Having a bony head, large teeth, small head, okay. Things had apparently gotten quite tense when the sea monster had allegedly attacked the submarine. Lurching up upon the starboard bow as it thrashed about and bit at the vessel, after a moment of stunned bewilderment, the men had begun to open fire on the creature, causing it to release the sub and slide back into the sea to disappear. In the aftermath of the startling encounter, it was found that UB-85 had sustained enough damage to prevent it from diving, making it a sitting duck for the enemy. The British calmly listened to his wild tale and then had the German submarine sunk, unfortunately, along with any evidence that this had really happened. Additionally, official reports make no mention of the sea monster encounter, so there's been some skepticism as to whether or not this event actually happened. Whether it did or not is certainly a rather exciting encounter. Yeah, that's creepy. I mean, those first U-boats were really pretty small. So, anything whale size probably could have harassed the hell out of them. One of the strangest encounters with a mystery monster in World War I allegedly happened on the battlefield of Mons, Belgium. In 1914, it was covered by author and researcher Theo Pijmans in an article called The Hound of Mons in Fortean Times, December 2008. Soldiers seem to have had more than the tenacious enemy to contend with, and according to an account by the Canadian veteran of the battle named F.G.A. Newhouse, the whole terrifying incident began with a Captain Yeskis and 4 men of the London Fusiliers who braved the perils of no man's land in order to carry out a patrol of the area and never returned. This was not strange in and of itself, as this was a bloody battle during the World War I, and to go missing was a common occurrence. Yet, when the bodies of the men were found several days later, it was discovered that something had ripped their throats out and left gaping teeth marks upon the corpses. One night, a few days after this, it was reported that soldiers from both sides heard an ear-piercing, monstrous howl emanating from the desolate darkness of no man's land. The blood-curdling shriek was allegedly so terrifying that some soldiers who had braved battle day after day cowered and considered retreating at once. From this incident sprang numerous reports of other soldiers being found dead and mauled as if by some very large, vicious beast, and that unearthly wail became a common sound echoing out across the area. The occasional anguished cries of terror from German soldiers across the battlefield seemed to indicate that they were suffering similar attacks. The unearthly nighttime roars also increased in frequency, and it was around this time that some of the soldiers on sentry duty along the edges of no man's land reported seeing an enormous gray hound skulking about out in the shadows of the war-torn chasm between the two enemies. Often said to possess glowing eyes, but for 2 years the mysterious hound supposedly prowled the bloody battlefield of Mons, gaining an ever-growing list of victims and instilling a horror on the troops. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the hound was gone and the attacks ceased. The story was widely circulated when Neuhaus first came forward with it in 1919, and it would gain further elements of bizarreness when he speculated that the creature had been the result of a twisted experiment carried out by a German doctor named Gottlieb Hochmuller for the purpose of inserting the brain of a madman into a massive Siberian wolfhound to be used as a weapon of war. Neuhaus would say of this in a 1919 article in the Oklahoman. The death of Dr. Gottlieb Hochmeyer in the recent Spartakian riots in Berlin has brought to light facts concerning the fiendish application of this German scientist's skill that have astounded Europe. For the Hound of Mons was not an accident, a phantom, or a hallucination. It was the deliberate result of one of the strangest and most repulsive scientific experiments the world has ever known. Accounts have variously claimed that the hound had been altered to be larger than before, that its capacity for hatred had been chemically enhanced, or that its hide had been made to be impervious to bullets. Neuhaus claimed that papers had been found upon Dr. Hochmuller's death that fully outlined the whole experiment, as well as the doctor's wishes to unleash the beast on Allied troops, and fully proved that the experiments were real. It's not explained whether the doctor had anticipated the maniacal hound turning against its own side, or why the walking weapon might have suddenly stopped its rampage. So what was going on here? Was there really some surgically or even genetically enhanced hellhound stalking the no man's land? Was it something more supernatural in nature? Was it pure fancy? Is there any grain of truth to it at all? Then it seems perhaps more likely that wild or feral dogs had perhaps been drawn to the war and had congregated there to feed on the dead fallen in battle. Upon their gruesome activities would be spotted by frightened battle-weary soldiers and interpreted as supernatural hounds from hell. This theory would also account for the ghostly howling that was heard from the front lines, and I do wonder if dogs would be willing to stick around, though, through it all of the riotous cacophony of gunfire blazing around them. But it does offer a rational explanation if indeed the events were even real. Whether this is a piece of war folklore and flight of fancy or has elements of truth to it, we'll probably never know. But and the Hellhound of Mons remains a mystery, tale buried in history. A mysterious tale buried in history. Very poetic. Got to take a drink. It's a lot of words. Oof. All right. Here's the next one. Also from World War II is the account of an A.G. Starkey, who was stationed aboard a British vessel operating off the coast of Maldives. One evening, as the vessel was moored, Starkey claimed that he had gone out on deck and that as he looked over the water, he noticed a huge dark mass and shone his flashlight on it, catching in its beam a truly monstrous squid, which was claimed to stretch from one end of the ship to the other for a total of 175 feet, or 53 meters, far larger than any known squid, he would say of the strange encounter. As I gazed, fascinated, a circle of green light glowed in my area of illumination. This green, unwinking orb, I suddenly realized, was an eye. The surface of the water undulated with some strange disturbance, and gradually I realized that I was gazing almost point blank at a huge squid. Wow. Since no other crew members saw the beast, it remains an enticing yet unverified account of an epically gigantic squid along the lines of the kraken of lore. The Japanese seem to have been plagued by sea monsters as well, as there is a report from one of their scout ships that seems to point to a ferocious attack by some underwater beast. Details of the case are scant, but one crewman described how a surge of water erupted near the vessel, after which the boat was jolted by something relentlessly ramming the hull. Other crewmen arrived and saw what appeared to be a large gray shape in the water, at least 50 feet long, with a white underbelly, leathery skin, a prominent dorsal fin, and was described as the head of an alligator. The creature would ram the vessel, circle back, and ram it again, sending its hull shuddering each time. It got to the point where the bone-jarring impacts caused the boat to list to starboard, or lean, upon which the shocked and panicked crew opened fire, finally sending whatever it was that had attacked them back into the depths from which it had come. There was allegedly so much damage to their ship that they were forced to abandon their mission and go back for repairs. Whatever it was, we will probably never know. The Japanese had some other bizarre encounters during the war as well. During the heavy fighting that went on during the bloody Battle of Guadalcanal in 1942 and 1943 on the Solomon Islands, Japanese troops began to come back from these mosquito-infested jungle battlefields with strange stories of having to come across a giant, hairy hominids ranging from 10 to 15 feet in height and covered in long brown reddish hair with prominent brows, flat noses, wide mouths, as well as immense arms, which they occasionally brandished crude weapons such as sticks and clubs. Yikes. That's some weird giant stuff there. It was reported that the giants were known to be quite aggressive and even attack on occasion. Several units described these terrifying beasts crashing through the foliage to ravage, kill, and maim squads of soldiers or snapping apart trees and branches in threatening displays of raw power. Bullets were said to have little effect on them, and soldiers would on many occasions be kept awake by inhuman wailing from the dark as the strange behemoths wandered the night, crashing through the brush and pushing over trees. Interestingly, the Solomon Islands have long history of mysterious giants, and the local people are well aware of them, with a rich tradition of folklore on the creatures, as well as sightings and footprint evidence of giant hairy hominids on the island that continue right up to the present day. Finally, we come to the Vietnam War, where American GIs trudging through the murky jungles fighting a tough enemy in a faraway land began to bring back stories of encountering strange and seemingly hostile ape-like creatures out in the wilderness, which would become known as rock apes. The most well-known in-depth published accounts of these enigmatic creatures come from a book by a veteran named Craig P.J. Jorgensen called Very Crazy GI, Strange but True Stories of the Vietnam War. The account describes the ordeal of a 6-man unit from the 101st Airborne Division who were taking a break after a relentless hike through unforgiving mountain jungle terrain carrying heavy packs. Even as they rested, they were attuned to the surrounding environment, very aware that the Viet Cong were everywhere and could strike at any moment. As the unit sat there resting and exhausted, in their sweat-soaked fatigues, some trees located around 15 yards uphill then reportedly began shaking violently, and it was assumed that this was the enemy. Their soldiers prepared their weapons and trained an eye on the suspicious, jostling trees. As they sat in wait, mosquitoes buzzing around their heads and the creeping, sickening dread of the coming battle weighing heavily on their minds. It was then noticed that an oblong head with a face covered in reddish hair and possessing a huge mouth of dark, deep-set eyes, had emerged from the brush. The startled soldiers then witnessed a strange creature step from the underbrush to reveal a 5-foot-tall, muscular frame enveloped in the same matted reddish hair, after which it stood there on 2 legs to seemingly carefully scrutinize the men. The soldiers then speculated that it must be a large orangutan, but before one of them even pointed out that orangutans were not native to Vietnam, but as they argued over what it could be, the strange beast purportedly lost interest in them and quietly slinked back off into the jungle. Although this is the most well-known report, it's not by any means the only one, and some of them are quite violent and in nature, painting a picture of decidedly ferocious and aggressive beasts. One such account given by Michael Kelly of D Company 1st 502nd Infantry of the 101st Airborne Division describes not one rock ape, but hundreds of them in the account, and in 1969, 8 of the strange creatures came casually walking up a trail on a ridge of Nui Mo Tao and surprised a platoon that was in the middle of having lunch when they turned a ridge at about 10 meters from where the men were situated. According to Kelly, the platoon at first immediately thought that they were Viet Cong, and all hell broke loose. The squad of men opened up with M16s and M79s and grenade launchers, lighting up the forest in a vicious display of booming firepower and flying pieces of vegetation. Kelly himself was at the far edge of the clearing, about 50 meters from where the barrage of continuous shooting had started, and he grabbed a weapon to run join them along with the platoon sergeant, taking cover under a toppled tree. For a few moments, Kelly and the platoon sergeant stayed hidden from the cacophony of gunfire erupting everywhere, when they finally gave each other the nod to engage. They popped out from behind a tree, ready to see a sizable enemy force descending upon them, judging by the nonstop barrage of relentless gunfire. What they saw instead was the platoon firing away at ghostly images that were swooshing through bushes and trees all around them. The mysterious intruders were described as being around 5.5 feet tall, and all but one was light brown to reddish brown in color. The other was almost black and was particularly aggressive large male, which reportedly madly rushed at men through the thick underbrush, snarling and with teeth bared. Throughout the frightening encounter, the ape-like beasts reportedly made sounds that sounded exactly like dogs barking. Then the creatures, whatever they were, abruptly melted away into the forest, disappearing as if they were never there. When the surprised platoon regained their composure, they searched the bullet-ridden, gun-smoke-permeated area and found no sign of any dead bodies or the animals, and oddly, not even any fur or blood. Kelly would remark on the surreal scene, "This may sound very strange to you, but although I had no or little concern about killing the enemy, the killing of innocent animals turned my stomach and could enrage me if done without being a necessity. But I searched the site but found not a drop of blood, which totally amazed me given the amount of firing that had gone on. I wonder to this day if the men were shooting just to scare the rock apes away or whether they were really just poor marksmen. The men who'd suffered the surprise looked a bit worse for wear, and I'm sure a few had to wash their shorts as a result of the unwelcome visit. It really scared the crap out of them, I kid you not." In 1968, the members of Mike Company on the 3rd Battalion of the 5th Marines, operating on Hill 868, which was so known for rock ape sightings that it had earned the nickname Monkey Mountain, the unit apparently often came across plentiful physical evidence of the creatures there, such as droppings, tufts of hair, or footprints, as well as hearing the eerie barks and cries at night. And the rock apes occasionally assaulted them with rocks lobbed from the jungle. The apes were described as throwing like girls, but with velocity, and men were reported as being often seriously injured by the hurled stone projectiles. In one account given by a veteran named Steve Canyon, a unit of Marines was out in the jungle on Hill 868 at night testing out a new muzzle flash and noise suppressor for their weapons. As they were setting up, they suddenly noticed a rock ape glaring at them from the thick vegetation. Reportedly completely unafraid, after a few moments of staring at the soldiers, the creature was said to then let out a sound like the bark of a dog. One of the men threw a rock at it to scare it away, and hit it dead on. After which the ape picked up a rock of its own and hurled it at them. It was then noticed that there were more of the rock apes gathering around. In the jungle, around 20 of them, which all began screeching, howling, and throwing rocks at the frightened men in unison. Despite the threatening situation, the unit did not open fire, instead making a hasty retreat. There was at one point even a body of one of the creatures found by Special Forces team after performing a nighttime drop into enemy territory. The unit allegedly came across the body of a decomposing Bigfoot-like creature that seemed to have been blown apart by a landmine. One of the members of the unit told his friend, a Steve Williams, about the tale, who would say of the gruesome discovery, "All they could see was the body cavity, spine, lungs, and such. All was crawling with bugs, and there was a shorter hair on the huge head. The eyes sunk back in an inch and a half from the brow line. It had long arms, very large and long fingers, and the hand was still wrapped around a branch. He, the original source of the tale, didn't say what the color it was, but did mention that it had a flat nose. If the creature had its legs, its estimated height would have been around 8 feet tall, and there was no sign of a lower half of the body. They were able to see the teeth, all flat, well-formed molars, except for the canines, which were long and pointed. Seemed adapted to living in the forest with long arms and fingers, or perhaps just builds night nests like gorillas sometimes do." Excuse me. What happened to this body? Who knows? There are numerous other accounts like this. Many of them are quite harrowing, and these reports become so commonplace that there were several expeditions sent out to try and find evidence of the creatures, which managed to find occasional human-like tracks, some of which were made into plaster casts. Is there some sort of undiscovered hairy hominid lurking out in the jungles of Vietnam? And did these creatures menace troops during the war? If so, what are they? Or was this just the product of war-addled minds and perhaps the use of drugs like LSD? It remains a mystery that we may never fully understand. It certainly seems that when looking into accounts like these, that the chaos and terror of war can hide within it some lesser-known, often forgotten aspects, and here we find reports that go beyond the known and point to creatures lurking in the fringes of battle that are every bit as frightening as the enemy. We'll probably never be able to corroborate any of these wild stories, as they very often exist as simply basic accounts from soldiers who perhaps had more on their mind than unexplained mystery beasts at the time. However, while we may never know the answers to these tales and are doomed to merely speculate, these cases nevertheless illuminate other aspects and mysteries of war and another facet of its horrors, serving to stoke the imagination and expand upon the history we know or think we know. There you go. One hell of a big article, but great article. There's so much packed into that article. Pfft, it's like my palate quit working halfway through it, though. I quit being able to form syllables after a part of that. It's like, blah, blah, blah. But that's how it rolls here in the portal. And how long did that take? That took quite a while, didn't it? Yeah. Well, that just brings us to one last piece of our journey tonight, and this is the trail cam terrors. Now, again, this is a different presentation than normal, but you'll see why. It's a weird one, all the same. So let's get to it. All right, folks. Welcome to the Trail Cam Terrors. Tonight I got a good one for you. This is pretty bizarre, and it comes with an article, and so I can't present it in the normal fashion because I'm gonna just put it on screen by itself because it isn't an article. But this is pretty unique. I've not seen a video like this before. I haven't really zoomed in and looked at it real carefully. I've just played it through it a few times, and I will show you this image, this video. And you can judge for yourself or look into it yourself if you so choose. But it's coming from NewYorkPost.com. And it's a curious one. I'll just say that. This is coming from, again, NewYorkPost.com. Florida woman thinks she saw a baby dinosaur running through her backyard. So this is quite a different one. I guess we could just read it. It's pretty quick to read. A Florida woman believes she saw a baby dinosaur scampering through her backyard, and she caught the prehistoric sighting on video, report said. Her name is Christina Ryan, shared her home security footage with Fox 35 on Saturday after cameras captured a strange creature running through her Palm Coast property last week in the middle of the night. Any animal we come up with that could be walking at 3:40 in the morning would not walk this way, Ryan told the outlet. Maybe I've watched Jurassic Park too many times, but I see a raptor or other small dinosaur. The footage briefly captures some sort of creature that appears to have an elongated body and a reptilian-like thick tail dashing through their yard. Everyone Ryan has shown the video to has come with the same conclusion. It must be a baby dino. Some say a large bird. That makes no sense, since whatever it is appears to have front legs, so not sure, she joked. I'm sticking with raptor myself. A few people who've seen the video commented online that it was like some sort of lizard or even dog. Looks like a Komodo dragon or some type of lizard, one person wrote. That is a dog wearing a harness dragging a leash. You can see all four legs in the harness and leash dragging behind it, another commented. Another figured it had to be extraterrestrial. UFO recently sighted, and guess this could be the CEO checking things out. Well, let's take a look at it. I'm going to see if I can make it any bigger, since we got a lot of real estate to work with here. Yeah, I think that should be pretty good. There we go. All right, so here it is, folks. Let me move my fat head out of the way. I'll move my head up here. Here is the video. You be the judge. It's a very quick little video, but we'll play it a few times here. Let me know what you guys see. I don't know. That's pretty good. I see it looks like a freaking little raptor. What? Again. I don't think the sound is necessarily related, but it's there. It really does look like a little dinosaur. I got to give him credit. That's kind of what I'm seeing too, but I don't know. I'd have to really zoom into it, really contrast the hell out of it, slow it down frame by frame, and look. But it certainly does have the visual hallmarks of what I would expect a little raptor to look like. So there you go, folks. What do you think it is? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. But that is tonight's Trail Cam Terrors. Is there little dinosaurs running amok in Florida? You be the judge. That's all I can tell you. And that'll conclude tonight's edition of the Trail Cam Terrors. So, that's all I got for you, folks. I gave you a bunch. I gave you more than I was planning on, but I gave it all because I got a week off coming up, so I need it. Got to get caught up. Got to get things sorted here. So don't worry, I will be back. I'll be, it's possible I'll come back even before that. But as it stands now, I'm going to plan on using that time to do everything I can do to keep the portal fresh and fun and amazing source of entertainment for all of you guys out there. So if you're new to the show, please get subscribed, but just know that the live presentations will be on hold until the 28th, when Don and I will come back on Wednesday night, the 28th, and do a 2-hour show then. But just know we'll miss you a bunch in the meantime. And there are about 900 episodes in our back catalog here on YouTube. So if you need a portal fix, I don't know, there's maybe only less than a handful of people that have looked at every episode we have. I know there were some people that were really giving it the whole journey and going through one by one. And so I think one or two might have done it, but there's still a lot of shows in our back catalog. So check them out if you need something to do in the meantime. But I'll be posting any information or news on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. and also on the Paranormal Portal fans page. So anything comes up, look over there for it, or the Brent Thomas page as well. But until then, though, just want you to know I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Hope you had a good time on the journey tonight. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you guys soon. But until then, just know you're right here. You're right here in my heart. All right, good night, everybody. Oh, and sweet dreams.